This wasn't a coincidence. It was a call. Imagine a message so precise, so deeply timed that it finds you not when you're looking, but when you're ready. You didn't click this video by chance. You were tuned into it long before you saw the thumbnail, because the truth you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a vibration, one that ancient mystics protected, one that changes everything it touches, and right now, it's reaching you. If you feel like your world has been shifting, if the signs are stacking up too perfectly, then stay, because what you're about to hear will not only explain it, it will activate it. If this resonates before we even begin, like this video now, it's not for metrics, it's for the field. Your way of silently saying, I'm aligned. Part 1, the signal. Reality doesn't speak in words, it speaks in resonance. Have you ever had that moment where something just feels off? Not wrong, not broken, just misaligned? As if the furniture of your life is still in place, but the gravity in the room has shifted. Maybe you've been feeling it lately. Things that used to satisfy no longer hold your attention. Conversations feel empty. Old goals seem irrelevant. And the strangest part? You can't explain why. It's as if life itself is whispering to you in a language you've forgotten, but still somehow understand. That's the signal. And once it begins, nothing can ever feel quite the same again. You've been receiving since the beginning. From the moment you took your first breath, you became a receiver. You didn't learn the world through logic. You absorbed it through frequency. The tone of your mother's voice, the energy in the room before a word was spoken, the unspoken rules passed down like invisible code. Long before you knew your name, you were tuned in to energy, to emotion, to pattern. You soaked up not just love and safety, but also fear, scarcity, guilt, trauma. Not because you asked for them, but because you were open, a perfect antenna, and everything you absorbed became the frequency you unknowingly began to emit. Your life is a mirror of what you've inherited. Look around your life. Every relationship, every repeated struggle, every breakthrough, every loss. It's all a reflection, but not of what you want, of what you resonate. You see, most people think reality is something they navigate, but it's more accurate to say reality responds to your signature. That signature isn't what you post online. It's not your vision board. It's not your affirmations. It's what your nervous system quietly vibrates when no one is watching. You could tell yourself you're confident, but if your energy still hums with unworthiness, the universe hears that louder. You could say you're ready for love, but if your body still vibrates with fear of betrayal, you'll attract more tests than tenderness. This is not punishment. This is feedback. Reality is exquisitely neutral. It simply echoes. The field is always listening. Now here's the part that changes everything. You don't need to consciously understand this for it to be real. Whether you believe in vibration or not, your life already does. And this is where things get interesting. Because if you're still watching this, it means something in your field is starting to wake up. That's not clickbait. That's frequency recognition. This video didn't appear because of the YouTube algorithm. It appeared because your field made itself visible to it. Your unseen signal called out, and the field listened. There is an intelligence that orchestrates everything. Not above you, not outside you, through you. It's been here since before language, and it's always waiting for when you're still enough to hear it again. This intelligence doesn't come with volume. It comes with vibration. And the first sign that it's touching you? Discomfort. When the signal hits, life begins to disrupt. Here's the part no one tells you. Awakening doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels disorienting. Why? Because the old frequency is trying to hold on, but the new one has already entered. You start noticing patterns you never saw before. Why does this same type of person keep showing up in your life? Why do you always fall into the same emotional cycle? Why do things fall apart right when they seem to be working? It's not sabotage, it's signal interference. Your field is recalibrating, and the old patterns, they're no longer compatible. So they break, they dissolve, they shatter, sometimes violently. Not to hurt you, but to free you. This isn't random. It's resonant timing. You're not late. You're not early. You're exactly on time. This kind of signal doesn't arrive by accident. It finds you when your field becomes ripe for transformation. And it almost always shows up like this, in a moment of emotional friction, when the external story starts falling apart, when nothing makes sense anymore. That's not the end. That's the beginning of frequency awareness. Because once you start sensing reality instead of controlling it, you start seeing that everything has always been mirroring you. Even the pain, especially the pain. The science of the signal, without getting too heady. Let's talk resonance, not as an esoteric concept, but as a natural law. Every thought, emotion, memory, belief has a measurable frequency. Your body holds it. Your breath carries it. Your field emits it. This isn't woo. This is waveform physics. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are in resonance with. It's why two people can walk into the same opportunity and have completely different outcomes. It's not luck. It's not the universe playing favorites. It's coherence. One person vibrates scarcity, another vibrates sovereignty. Same environment, different experience. Coherence is magnetic. When your internal frequency is misaligned, life feels like a struggle. You chase love. You hustle for security. You force gratitude. You manipulate outcomes. But when your internal frequency begins to align, life begins to flow. You stop needing proof. You start sensing presence. You don't attract through effort anymore. You magnetize through coherence. And coherence isn't something you chant. It's something you become. How do you know you're receiving the signal? Simple. You feel restless, even if life looks good on the outside. You sense something's coming, but you don't know what. The old tricks, motivation, self-help books, hustle, suddenly feel hollow. You're drawn to silence more than noise. You're beginning to question everything you once took as truth. These aren't symptoms of confusion. They're signs of frequency upgrade. And once that begins, you can't go back. The signal doesn't unsend itself. It only gets louder until you answer. You are being prepared, not punished, if things feel heavy, if relationships are falling apart, if the job, the identity, the role no longer fits. Trust this. You are not being punished. You are being stripped of everything that's not compatible with the vibration you are becoming. This part is hard, it's lonely, it's messy, but it's sacred. Because before you can embody a higher signal, your field has to make room. So don't resist the clearing. Don't panic when people fall away. Don't grasp for the old story. The old you can't hold the new frequency, the truth beneath it. All you've never been broken. You've just been tuned to a signal that wasn't yours. Family wounds, cultural narratives, inherited beliefs, they wrapped around you like a second skin. But now that skin is cracking, and beneath it is not confusion, it's recognition. The signal was never lost. It was always within you, waiting for the precise moment when you'd be ready to feel it again. And if you're still here, this is that moment, call to presence. If this resonated even in the smallest, strangest, deepest way, don't let it be passive. Let your field speak. Let it vibrate in return. Tap like, not as applause, but as a signal, a declaration, I've heard the call. Write I am ready in the comments, not for views, but for connection. Because there are others watching who feel exactly what you just felt. And when they see your signal, they'll remember their own. Subscribe, not to follow, but to anchor. So this vibration doesn't just echo in you, it lives in you. Part 2, the code. The ancients didn't write books, they encoded frequency. There's a reason why you've felt different lately, why familiar things no longer feel like home, why your inner world is asking bigger questions than your outer life seems ready to answer. Because the moment your frequency begins to shift, you don't just feel the signal, you begin to remember the code. And no, this isn't the kind of remembering that happens in your brain. It happens in your field, in your cells, in your breath, not with thought, with recognition. What is the code? Let's be clear. This is not information. It's not something to learn. It's something to unlock. Because long before libraries, before algorithms, before enlightenment was packaged and sold, there were beings who knew how to encode vibration. They were not gurus. They were not brands. They were transmitters. And what they transmitted was resonance. They didn't write books. They left patterns, spirals in sand, stories wrapped in myth, diagrams that only made sense when your soul was ready to feel them, not analyze them. These were not metaphors. They were technologies. And their only access key was vibration. This is the code, and it doesn't show itself to everyone, only to those whose frequency is reaching the threshold of remembrance. The secret carriers, Sufis, Kabbalists, Hermetic initiates, mystics in hidden deserts, healers in forgotten temples. These weren't cults. They were stewards, not of beliefs, but of frequency maps. They knew that truth couldn't be handed down through dogma. It had to be encoded and earned vibrationally. So they wove it into motion, into breath, into symbols, into silence. Because silence holds more frequency than words ever could. Why the code was hidden. Let's be honest. If this knowledge had been made public centuries ago, what do you think would have happened? It would have been manipulated, distorted, packaged for control. Because truth, when misunderstood, becomes a tool of domination. So they hid it. Not in vaults, but in plain sight, wrapped in symbols, rituals, and stories. Because only those with the right vibration could truly unlock it. They understood something profound. If someone's consciousness wasn't ready, then giving them this wisdom would only feed the ego. It wouldn't awaken them. It would weaponize them. And so the code stayed hidden. Until now. Your frequency is the key. Here's what most people miss. The code isn't something outside of you. It lives within you, dormant, until your frequency matches the resonance that unlocks it. It's like a biometric lock. You can't fake your way in. Only your true vibration opens the door. Not your performance, not your spiritual language, not your Instagram aesthetic, but your alignment. And once you match the code begins to reveal itself, not in a flash, but in fragments, in feelings, in signs, in knowing. The cycle of forgetting and remembering. This isn't your first contact with the code. You've felt it before. In that one moment when time seemed to stop, when a piece of art moved you to tears, and you didn't know why. When a stranger said something in passing, and it echoed in your chest for weeks. When you dreamt of symbols you couldn't explain, but couldn't forget. These weren't random. They were activations. Moments when the code whispered, remember. The mind will try to intervene. But here's the trap. Your mind will try to understand, categorize, make it make sense. Don't fall for that, because this isn't about learning. It's about becoming. The mind wants to control. But this code only flows in surrender. So if part of you feels confused right now, that's okay. That's a sign it's working. You don't decode this message by thinking harder. You decode it by feeling deeper. Why this resonates without explanation. Have you ever heard something and it felt like a memory, even though you've never read it, never studied it? That's not coincidence. That's recognition. This is genetic resonance, cellular memory, soul familiarity. You're not learning something new. You're finally touching something ancient. That's been waiting for you to become compatible with it. And that's why you're here now, watching this. Not because you were curious, but because something in you said, I know this, even if you can't explain how. The role of symbols and sacred geometry. Why do certain shapes draw you in? The spiral, the tetrahedron, the golden ratio, the tree, the eye, the rose on the cross. These aren't just designs. They're carriers. They're frequency holders, visual expressions of how energy moves through time and form. Your soul doesn't just see them, it responds to them, because these are the codes of how reality organizes itself. And when you begin to recognize them, not with your eyes, but with your energetic signature, you begin to remember the map. This is not a philosophy, it's a technology. Let's break the illusion right now. This is not a belief system. This is not a feel-good ideology. This is a vibrational interface, a system so precise, so ancient, and so secure that it only unlocks to those who have done the inner work to match it. You don't join this path, you tune into it. And once you do, everything changes. Not because you try harder, but because life around you begins to reorganize to match the signal you've finally begun to emit. Reality doesn't move by effort. It moves by frequency, and frequency is encoded. So, what happens after you touch the code? Things won't suddenly be perfect, but they will begin to shift in undeniable ways. You'll begin to notice synchronicities that feel tailored. You'll start remembering things you never learned. Your body may respond before your thoughts do. You'll sense deeper meaning in art, language, music, silence. You'll feel called to protect your energy without guilt. You'll crave less validation and more alignment. And slowly but surely, you'll stop searching because the code doesn't push. It pulls you inward, where the truth has always been waiting. You don't use the code, you become it. Here's the paradox. The more you chase the code, the more it hides. But the more you settle into stillness, integrity, clarity, the more it reveals itself. Not as a thing you have, but as something you are. You don't need more answers. You need fewer distortions.
Because when the noise dies down, the code begins to speak. And it doesn't speak in language, it speaks in resonance, in timing, in emotion, in frequency. If you've made it here, you're no longer an observer. You've entered the current. The code is now in your field. It will do what it's always done. Activate, restructure, call you deeper. You don't need to force anything, just stay present. This is no longer about information, it's about embodiment. Let it move in silence. Let it echo. Let it change you. You are not here to memorize. You are here to resonate. If you felt the code stir inside you, if this wasn't just a video but a reverberation, drop the word "remember" in the comments. Like this video, to amplify the signal. Not for clout, but to leave a trail for others finding their way. And subscribe. Not to follow, but to stay tuned to the vibration that now lives in your field. Part 3 is already forming in you. Part 3. The reversal. You don't manifest by asking. You manifest by reversing the flow. At some point on this journey, you stop asking, "What do I need to do?" And you begin to ask, "What am I still broadcasting without realizing it?" Because there comes a moment, not marked by fireworks, but by silence, where something profound shifts. You realize that the universe was never ignoring you. It was echoing you. And that's when the reversal begins. Why everything you tried didn't quite work. Let's get honest for a moment. You've visualized, you've journaled, you've scripted your dream life in notebooks filled with golden ink. You've said the affirmations, burned the sage, made the vision board. And yet, somehow, the breakthrough still didn't stick. Why? Because most manifestation advice focuses on output. What you say, what you want, what you picture. But almost no one talks about the input, what you're unconsciously receiving, what's still running in your field beneath the surface, what your nervous system is radiating when no one's watching. And that's the real blueprint. You're always broadcasting, even in silence. Here's the radical truth. You don't have to want something for it to manifest. You simply have to vibrate in alignment with it, or in resistance to its opposite. Most people attract fear not because they want it, but because they vibrate at the frequency of protection, of scarcity, of vigilance. They don't want chaos. They just don't feel safe without control. And that's the frequency that goes out. Not their words, not their wishes, but their state. Your life is not responding to your effort. It's responding to your energetic signature. The universe reads, intention, not appearance. Let's break it down. Imagine two people performing the same action. Let's say, giving generously. On the outside, it looks identical, but underneath. One gives to be seen, to be liked, to be approved of. The other gives from overflow, from joy, from inner abundance. The universe doesn't read what you did. It reads why you did it. Because the frequency behind the gesture is what creates your field, and reality doesn't respond to the surface. It responds to the source code, the power of silent motives. This is where most people misalign. They focus on scripting outcomes. I want love. I want freedom. I want success. But their field is still humming with lack, with, I need this because I don't have it. And so what do they manifest? The absence, the search, the not having. Because the request isn't what shapes reality. The vibration behind the request does. That's the reversal. And it's subtle. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. From consuming to radiating. We've been trained to live like consumers of reality. We wait for things to arrive before we feel the feeling. We think, once I get the job, the person, the clarity, then I'll be happy, then I'll feel safe, then I'll rest. But this orientation is backward. The field doesn't deliver the experience so you can feel the frequency. It delivers the experience because you're already radiating it. So what if, instead of consuming reality, you began to radiate into it? What if you became the transmitter, the frequency generator? That's the reversal. That's when life stops responding to what you do and starts aligning with what you are. Becoming an energetic mirror. The most powerful people you've ever met don't try to impress you. They don't convince. They don't perform. They simply are. Their vibration speaks before their words ever do, and in their presence, you feel something shift. Not because they gave you something, but because they reminded you of yourself. That's the mirror effect. And when you reach this state, you stop trying to manipulate life. You begin to reflect it, accurately, effortlessly, coherently. You become a point of reference in a world full of scattered frequencies.
The mind will resist the simplicity. This all sounds great until the mind kicks in. But how do I know I'm vibrating the right thing? What if I mess it up? What if I stop trying and nothing happens? Pause. That's the old frequency talking, the one that believes in performance, in pleasing, in earning. But the field doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to be coherent, to feel, think, act, and intend in alignment. When you do that, you stop sending mixed signals, and reality has no choice but to respond in kind. The sacred paradox of receiving. Now here's the part that flips the game completely. Even when you think you're giving, you're receiving. We receive attention, we receive challenges, we receive people, emotions, beauty, disruption, love. We even receive rejection, because rejection is still a form of experience that comes toward you. It still arrives. It still offers something to your field. So the goal was never to stop receiving. The shift is in what you do with what you receive, and that's where the true reversal lives. Turning receiving into radiance. Here's the subtle magic. The moment you begin to receive from a place of presence with full gratitude, not hunger, you begin to amplify what you've received. You create overflow, you radiate, you broadcast, you become a source. And when the universe detects that you don't just consume, it sees that you recycle energy into light. It responds by expanding your field, because now your frequency is no longer a closed loop. It's a channel. And channels don't block, they conduct. Your field becomes a signal of trust. You're not just attracting anymore. You're in training, which means your vibration now influences the field around you. You bring order to chaos, stillness to noise, clarity to confusion. Why? Because you've reversed the flow, and your presence has become a stabilizing pattern. This is when people begin to notice something's different about you. They may not be able to name it, but they'll feel it. They'll say, "You feel calm. Something about you is magnetic. I don't know why, but I feel safe with you." And it's not what you said, it's what you broadcasted. Your vibration is no longer accidental. This is what mastery looks like. Not control, not dominance, but intentional resonance. And you don't have to fake it. You simply have to clean up the interference, the doubts, the guilt, the past projections, the what if I'm not enough. These aren't flaws, they're just static. And when you stop trying to fix yourself and start tuning yourself, You begin to hum with a clarity that life can't ignore. You're not here to try. You're here to remember trying is rooted in separation. It's the belief that you have to get something from life. But when you remember that you already are the thing you're trying to get, you stop performing and you start embodying. You are not here to manifest things. You are here to become the vibration that draws them in naturally. No more chasing, no more proving. Just resonance. And from that resonance, life flows, not as a reward but as a reflection. You've reached the turning point. You've gone from absorption to awareness, from trying to remembering, from output to embodiment. And now you radiate. The reversal is complete when you realize you are not creating from the outside in. You are now creating from within. Life no longer works because of you. It works through you. If this part landed in your chest like truth does, not as new information, but ancient remembering. Leave a like, not to support us, but to echo the reversal. Write "I am the signal" in the comments and let others know the reversal has begun in them too. Subscribe to stay in the field, because what's coming in part 4 is not just reflection, it's mirroring. Part 4. The mirror. You stop chasing reality. You become the surface it reflects from. There's a moment on the journey, quiet and unannounced, when you stop trying to make life work. And instead, life begins to work around you. Not because you found a secret formula, not because you mastered your thoughts, but because you became something rare. You became clear. And in that clarity, reality began to mirror you. From reflection to refraction. Let's go back. For most of your life, you weren't seeing the world as it was. You were seeing it through the lens of your own static. Projections, fears, hopes, and identity filters. That's not wrong. It's human. But it was distorted. You weren't interacting with life. You were interacting with your own inner noise, projected outward. But when you begin to clean your frequency, when the static quiets, when the intention behind your energy becomes pure, you begin to see the world as it is, unfiltered, unobstructed, alive. And in that moment, life starts seeing you, becoming the clean mirror. There's a sacred shift that happens when your vibration becomes stable. You stop reacting. You start reflecting, not reflecting opinions, not reflecting past pain, but reflecting presence. This is when you become a mirror, a clear surface, a sacred echo. Not because you repeat what others give you, but because your presence reveals what's already true. You don't push, you don't pull, you hold. And in your holding, others begin to see themselves. That's real power. That's the mirror. The mirror doesn't choose. It simply reflects. The power of the mirror is that it reflects whatever stands before it, whether it's light or shadow, love or fear, stillness or chaos. But here's the thing. A mirror doesn't judge what it reflects. It just reveals. And when your vibration becomes that mirror, you stop trying to fix people. You stop trying to manage life. You simply show. And that showing invites transformation, not by force, but by resonance. This is where unity begins. The illusion of separation dissolves in the mirror, because when someone looks into your field and sees themselves clearly, they remember who they are. Not the mask, not the role, but the original pattern beneath the noise. This is why your presence becomes medicine, not because you have answers, but because your clarity removes distortion. And in that space, they return to themselves. The mirror tests you differently. But here's the hard truth. The cleaner your mirror becomes, the more life will send you things to test how stable that reflection really is. Can you stay clear in the face of projection? Can you stay open in the face of judgment? Can you hold presence when others can't hold theirs? This isn't about being passive. It's about being anchored. And being anchored doesn't mean being unmoved. It means being unshakable at the core. So yes, your edges will still get touched. Old patterns may try to rise. Triggers will appear. But the difference now is you don't flinch, you reflect. And that is when people around you start to say, I feel calm with you. I don't know why, but I trust you. I feel seen, not because of what you say, but because of what you hold. This is why the world needs mirrors. The world isn't starved for more information. It's starved for coherence. It doesn't need more influencers, it needs mirrors. People who reflect truth without agenda. People who carry presence without pressure. People who don't impose their vibration. They stabilize the space around them. And when you become that, you become a magnetic field, a space of remembering, a signal of what's possible. You stop needing external evidence. One of the clearest signs you become the mirror. You stop needing proof that you're on the right path. Why? Because your feedback no longer comes from the world. It comes from within. You can feel the alignment. You can feel the friction drop. You can feel time stretch around you like silk. You don't rush decisions. You don't chase love. You don't explain your peace. You just are. And the world adjusts to that, not by luck, but by design. Life begins to orbit your frequency. When you become the mirror, you notice something beautiful. You don't have to find your tribe. They find you. You don't have to hustle for recognition. It arrives. You don't have to micromanage your future. It synchronizes around your stillness. Because you are no longer a seeker. You are now a reference point, and reality begins to orbit your coherence. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. Presence becomes your power. Here's the essence. You're not manifesting anymore. You're emanating. You're not hoping. You're holding. You're not reacting. You're reflecting. And from that stillness, everything begins to move. The irony? You become most powerful the moment you stop trying to be powerful. Because true influence has no agenda. It simply is. Like the sun, like the moon, like the still lake reflecting stars. That's the mirror. That's the gift. And yes, the mirror will break some things. Let's not romanticize it. Becoming a mirror means some relationships will fall away. Not because you rejected them, but because your clarity revealed what they were hiding. You'll see things others can't. You'll feel truth before it's spoken. You'll sense when energy is off, and you won't be able to pretend anymore. This may isolate you at first, but it won't disconnect you. Because as the mirror, you don't abandon others. You just stop abandoning yourself. And in that, you become a living permission slip for others to return to their own truth. When you mirror the divine. Eventually, something deeper happens. The more you reflect clearly, the more you become a mirror for the source itself. You stop being the character in the story. You become the canvas, the vessel, the space where the light bends into shape. You stop asking, will this work out for me? And you begin asking, how can I serve this frequency with integrity? And when you do, the mirror becomes sacred. You don't just reflect the world anymore. You reflect what created it. You've walked through fire to get here. You've unlearned. You've recalibrated. You've reversed the current. And now you've become the clear surface, a vibrational mirror, a space of coherence in a chaotic world. And this is only the beginning. Because when the world starts reflecting you, not your past, not your fear, but your presence, that's when manifestation becomes inevitable. Not as a wish, but as a consequence of what you've become. If this part resonated like a truth already living inside you, like the video. Not as support, but as signal. Write "I am the mirror" in the comments so others can find their reflection through your field. Subscribe to stay in the resonance. Because in part 5, we don't just reflect the light, we activate it. Part 5, the activation. You no longer manifest reality. You become the field it flows through. There comes a moment, quiet at first, where something inside you stops reaching, stops grasping, stops waiting, and starts pulsing from within. Not as desire, not as thought, but as presence. This is not inspiration. It is not motivation. This is activation. The moment when your vibration becomes coherent enough to light up the field itself. What activation really means? Let's start here. Activation is not a performance. It's not a burst of energy. It's not a morning routine. It is a biological and energetic alignment that occurs when your inner state matches the original design of your soul. No masks, no effort, no delay, just total congruence. What you think, what you feel, what you do, what you vibrate, all moving in the same direction. And when that happens, you don't ask reality to respond. It just does, instantly, precisely, effortlessly. You become compatible with everything. Here's the sacred secret no one teaches. The activated being is not more powerful. They are simply more compatible with the intelligence that governs all things. They don't force the universe to bend. They match its current. And that match changes everything. You don't need to convince. You don't need to attract. You don't need to manifest. Because the things that once seemed far away now arrive naturally, not as rewards, but as reflections of coherence. Coherence is the language of creation. Creation doesn't respond to belief. It doesn't respond to need. It responds to coherence. When your intention matches your frequency, matches your actions, matches your stillness, you emit a vibration so undeniable that life begins to reshape itself around you. This is the difference between hoping and becoming. When you're hoping, you're waiting. When you're activated, you're transmitting. And transmission is what makes the field move. Activation feels like stillness, not fireworks. Most people miss activation because they're looking for drama, emotion, ecstasy. But true activation doesn't scream. It settles. You become more quiet, more grounded, more precise. It's not that life becomes easy, but that resistance loses its grip. You no longer push outcomes. They arise. You no longer chase timing. It unfolds. You no longer ask, will it happen? Because you can feel it already is. Your body begins to respond differently. When you activate, your system changes. Your breath deepens without trying. Your nervous system relaxes, even in the unknown. Your perception of time starts to shift. Minutes stretch, moments feel infinite. Your sensitivity increases, but not your fragility. You stop flinching at uncertainty. You stop fighting the flow. Your body becomes a resonant instrument, no longer absorbing chaos, but tuning the room you walk into. You feel luminous, not in appearance, in vibration. That's activation. You stop needing to explain your alignment. One of the clearest signs you've activated, you no longer need others to understand. You don't explain your peace. You don't justify your boundaries. You don't shrink your light because you're no longer trying to be accepted. You're resonating acceptance from within. And ironically, that's what draws people in. Not because you performed, but because you emitted stability. The world is full of noise, but very few people are clear signals. And when you become one, you don't need to raise your voice. Presence does the speaking. Life shifts from response to reverence. This is subtle but massive. At first, life responds to you. It echoes what you vibrate. But at this level, life begins to operate in reverence toward you. It recognizes the field you hold. It moves with you. It organizes around you. Not out of obedience, but out of resonant harmony. You stop needing signs. You become one. You stop asking for miracles. You realize your presence is one. You're no longer a mirror. You're the source previously. You became the mirror. You reflected truth. You stabilized energy. But activation moves you beyond reflection. It turns you into a source of frequency, not because you take credit, but because you are now so clear that the source can move through you without interference. You're no longer trying to be spiritual. You are operating as spirit in real time. You are no longer in the game. You are the field in which the game unfolds. You are the 0 point, the pulse, the presence. But activation has a price: integrity. Now here's the part few are willing to face. To stay activated, you must be vibrationally integral. This isn't about morality, it's about coherence at all levels. It means staying clear when confusion is louder, remaining kind when judgment is easier, holding your frequency even when no one's looking, refusing to fragment yourself to be accepted. Because every time you betray your vibration, you unplug yourself from the field. You introduce a static. You lose signal. So activation requires discipline, not of action, but of frequency fidelity. Silent service, you become the lighthouse. Once you're activated, you don't chase missions. Your life becomes the mission. Everything you touch feels different. Everything you say carries frequency. Every room you enter adjusts slightly because you're in it. Not because you're better, but because you're clear. You become a lighthouse, not moving, not seeking, just standing, radiating. And those ready to find themselves will find you. The field is now circular. Everything you give returns without asking, not because you earned it, but because you are now part of the loop. You're no longer trying to plug into the source, you are vibrating with it. And in that circular field, effort disappears, time bends, life flows. You are not chasing alignment, you are the alignment. And from here, nothing is forced, nothing is lost, nothing is separate. You are no longer waiting for your life to begin. It has begun. You've crossed the threshold. You've received the signal, decoded the code, reversed the flow, became the mirror. And now you're activated. You are no longer a node in the matrix. You are the pulse, the tone, the tuning fork, the space where intention becomes manifestation without trying. This isn't the end of your story. It's the end of separation. From now on, you don't manifest to get. You vibrate to reflect. You don't chase reality. Reality calibrates to you. This is not fantasy. This is vibrational fact. If this final